Hey y'all, put a new battery in the old girl. Figure we'll take her for one last rip around the block with the old 350 carbureted job. It's tired, it's wheezing. This is pretty risky because the air compressor pulley is bearing or whatever it is about to come apart. So we'll just go along and hope for the best. All right, we have very little gasoline. I need to make a good mental note of what gauges are working, so don't let me forget. Before I get out of the truck, I'll record them all. I just love this old van. Don't know why, it ain't worth much. And that's just pretty much floorboarded. You should see the big blue cloud of smoke behind me. Okay, my oil pressure gauge works, voltmeter gauge, coolant temperature gauge works, my charge indicator on the stock dash works, my oil pressure gauge on the dash does not work, fuel gauge works and it's below E, so wish me luck. Oh, and the tag's out. Speedometer works. I'm gonna go ahead and here real quick turn this sucker around before we run out of gas and have to call my wife, and we're just not gonna do that. I appreciate y'all hanging around and waiting on this project to kick off. I first started talking about it almost a year ago. Alright, let's reverse it. Can y'all see that over there? It's a Ford Econoline van. I can buy that cheap. Supposedly still runs. Alright. Give her one last whirl here. Ah, this thing's a dog. I can't wait for this to be my daily driver. I'll be parking my F-150. It rides a lot better with these newer tires on it that I put on last summer. The old ones are still in the back here, but they're hard as a rock. And the air worked on this thing until the seal on the compressor failed and leaked it all out the front of the air compressor and slung it all over underneath the hood. I'm probably going to go ahead and do a quick degrease on the engine bay once I get the engine out of it. It's going to be my one and only opportunity. Back home. I got just long enough for braking traffic to back in. God, that compressor sounds horrible. That's the other reason we're cutting this drive a little short. I don't want to drive back with no water pump, power steering, or anything else. Alright, so I'll give you a quick rundown of the parts that I have to do this swap. I'm not 100% certain that I've got everything I need, but show you what I do have. Over here, since this is kind of off topic, I've got a new master cylinder rear brake shoes, and I've also got wheel cylinders because one of the backs is bad. That I'm gonna do while I've got all the junk out from under the hood. Anyways, back to the swap part. We got the Gen 4 LS. This is a 2011, a 4.8 liter. It does not have the displacement on demand feature, so that's good. It's low miles. I forget exactly, it's right around 100,000 miles. It's pretty clean. I did a quick degrease on it. It's gonna practically be invisible under the hood of this van, so I'm probably not gonna do anything more than what I've done. Might shoot a little paint on the front of the pulleys, but aside from that, it's gonna be invisible underneath the truck. It has a set of $100 headers, made by Beaver, I think was the name of it. Quite honestly, I have no idea how they can make them this cheap. They appear to fit. You got a thick flange on them. They come with the collector. It's got a 3-bolt flange, which I'm not crazy about, but this thing had factory manifolds, and I needed a short extension of just the downpipe, you know, that I could weld no 2 into, and I couldn't find them unless I wanted to buy the whole cat attachment and everything, which is like 400 something bucks. So I was like, well, for $100, if they work, great. If they don't, well, who cares? Anyways, moving on. This van is an 82, which means it has the Rochester Quadrajet on it. So the fuel system is not set up for fuel injection. So what I've done is I have bought a later model in I think this is 1988, G20 fuel tank. Same size fuel tank, difference being the sending unit hole is a lot larger. So this will bolt right in. I also bought a precision sending unit, also for an 88, which is all new stuff. I ordered this one without the pump, so this will bolt right in. I ordered the correct fittings to adapt pressure and our feed and return line. So this will be a direct bolt in the truck with a little extra wiring. So that'll wrap up that part. And since it doesn't have a pump, a TBI system doesn't run enough fuel pressure. So buying one with a pump, I mean, you're wasting your money on the pump, basically. So they operate at 20 or 30 PSI less than an LS requires. So here I have a Aeromotive fuel pump, internal, you know. I don't know why I'm unpackaging this, you really can't see it, but get it out of the box. Okay, here we go. This little fella, this will supply plenty of fuel for me. This is an 11569 part number. So that'll just mount right in the end of the bottom stock fuel sending unit. Doing it this way with the newer, later model tank and sending unit and fuel pump like this also applies to the square body trucks of the same vintage. You can do the exact same thing. Okay, I have bought a painless fuel pump relay wiring kit, although really I probably won't use it because my wiring harness has an internal fuel pump relay in it. Also in the fuel system, I have a Corvette style filter return assembly. It's from Speedway. I have quite a bit of fuel hose. I got some Aeroquip, and then this, whatever brand this is, who cares? Also from Speedway. And a whole bag of fittings. I've got, like I said, fitting to go from the sending unit. I've got the fittings to go with this pump. I've got everything to go all the way up to the single rail fuel line on this motor. So that'll round out that part of it. Now, moving on to the electronics part of this swap, a buddy of mine has gone through this harness and pulled everything out that we don't need. Everything's already been deleted. Doesn't need to be there. Everything's wrapped, ready to go. he installed this neat little fuel panel, or fuse panel. Got a couple of different relays, one's for fan, one's for fuel. I forget what the other one is off the top of my head. Then we have, these are our main connections, and here are a few more connections, but essentially these are about all we got to wire to make this sucker run. This being a Gen 4, it has the electronic gas pedal. I've got to figure out a way to modify this bracket or build a new bracket to mount this in the truck. There's not a whole lot of room in there, but this just goes along with having the drive-by-wire setup. We have a, oh, that one's not it. Here it is. We've got a OBD2 port for your scan tool. And I forget what these go to. We'll figure it out later. And moving on to here, we've got two brand new Denso O2 sensors. We have a Dakota Digital feed through speed pickup. I can run my factory speedometer cable into one side and back out the other. It's got an adapter and everything you need, and that'll give a speed reference to the ECM. And then lastly, I have some ICT billet aluminum engine mounts. This motor currently has mounts on it, but these are for a 54 Chevy truck that we're building that I had this motor mocked up in the other day. And these will allow me to bolt to the block and use the factory GM rubber mounts. So these should work just fine. It should be a direct bolt in. I do not know that. I'm not going to give everybody part numbers until I know that everything is in the truck will actually work. I am running a Turbo 350. I plan on mainly just using this around here. I really don't care about the overdrive. We left most of the wiring intact, where if I want to run a 4L60E later, I can. In fact, I've got one laying on the floor right there. But that transmission works great, shifts good, it doesn't leak, which is a miracle for a GM transmission. And we're just gonna run with it. Is it ideal? Nope, but I don't care. It's gonna be better than what I got. And I can change anytime I want without having to move the engine or anything like that. Things that I don't have yet. I do not have cooling fans. What I'm hoping I can do is use a stock pickup truck clutch fan assembly, like you would see on probably a mid 2000s Chevy or GMC, like 2500. This does have the thread-on water pump neck here, where I'm hoping that's what I can run. I'm not sure if that'll work out or not. I really don't want to run just main, only electric fans, because I've run into problems in the past with electric fans not quite flowing well enough to keep things cool. That's just my experience, and it could just be from wrong fan combinations or whatever, but I like the simplicity of just an old mechanical fan. And like I said, I do have an output for an ECM controlled cooling fan, so I can run that if I want. But what we're going to run into on this van, unlike with a lot of other vehicles, there's no space for anything in this truck. You have very little, there's no room beside the engine. I mean, the stock 350, you'll see later, there's like this much room between the engine and the cutout on the floor, so there's no room to go that way. The only place there's more room than like a pickup is underneath, like behind the motor. There's quite a bit of room, but everything under the hood, everything in this vicinity, there's just no room. So that's kind of where we're at with it. So I haven't done anything about a cooling fans. I'm just going to see how that goes. If there is room for fan, it'll fit the shroud. I'll just buy the stock GM stuff. I also don't have the neck assembly to go up to my air filter box, and I'll show you what I'm using there, or what I hope to use. I bought it, so hopefully it'll work. But I think that covers most of what we need to go over here. So I'm going to show you my air filter box. So moving up here to the front of the engine bay, see there's a lot going on here. There's about, from here, this seal, to the header panel right here, there's maybe 12 inches. So you got 1 foot of access all the way across. You can see the booster assembly, master cylinder is right in the way. So this is going to come out. Like I said, we've got a new one. So while it's out, we're going to replace it. Shows signs of pretty good rust and potentially leaking down the front here. It's got some rust and debris in there. But anyways, what I'm hoping to do is use this guy here. This is a factory Chevy Express air filter assembly. You know, it's from any of the modern Chevy vans. Has the sensor, has the neck down, has a big filter in it, and it's got a kind of a low profile that mounts on the core support there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to use it. It might have to build some different mounts for it. I don't know, but ideally I can relocate this, relocate this vacuum pod, and basically have this thing in there like this. It'll be scooted over like to about here, as far as I can get it over this way, let's say there, and that would give us more or less a straight shot right into the neck of the throttle body, which will be roughly a foot down in there. And this is clockable a little bit, not much. I can move it very little, maybe a 1/4 inch or more, just to give me more, like that. But I can rotate the whole assembly. I can build some, you know, whatever kind of brackets I need to mount it up. But with this relocated, I think that'll look pretty cool, kind of factory looking, sitting right there. Well, as with any motor swap job, we'll start this one off with the antifreeze bath. I also haven't figured out anything with the radiator hoses or the power steering. I'm not sure what's going to be required to adapt the new power steering pump to the old gearbox. So I haven't done that. Golly. Okay, we're getting some liquid. Okay. Alright, so the first part of this job is going to be to remove the headlight bezels, the grille. We need to get this core support, radiator assembly, get this whole thing out of the way. I don't think I have to pull the bumper. I probably am going to have to pull this piece. Don't want to tear it up. But that's the first step. Had quite a bit of interest in this project. Like I said, I sure wish I could have kicked it off earlier, but this stuff takes money, if you didn't already know that. And I've got a lot of projects. But this one is at least a running, driving vehicle, or it was this morning. It's fixing to not be. Done. So it's at this point that I think I'm gonna fire the van up and pull it outside, turn it around so I can have it facing the right direction on the lift. Got the old flag flying as usual. Got two actually, or three, one over there. Anyways, off topic. Yeah, I'm gonna get the thing spun around because I'm by myself working this weekend. It's a 3-day work weekend, you know. Don't have no help. Anyways, I'm gonna spin it around because I'm gonna try to pull this assembly with these side brackets, the lower grill, and this top plate. I'm gonna try to pull all that as a unit. Just bolts to the fender, bolts down in here, and I cannot get to, let's see, turn the light on. Can't get to those bolts super easy, and then those bolts there that you can see because the battery's in the way. So I'm gonna fire it up for one last time, turn it around, get it back in here, and pull the battery out, and pull those top clamps off the radiator, and I think pull that as a unit. I haven't pulled the front off one of these vans in probably 10 years, so I'm just kind of winging it. I'll bring you back once I pull this out, turn it around. Good morning, y'all. We're gonna be tearing in on the bottom of the van and starting to get the motor tore out today. Chicken. Anyways, a couple of y'all have asked how I managed to get a bunch of stuff done and keep up with all the projects. And well, mainly because probably I'm a little crazy. It's just barely 6 o'clock Sunday. Most normal people are in bed, and I'm out messing with this junk. Oh, and look at this thing on my head. It's not a zit. See all this scar tissue up here? I crashed one of my hot rods like 20 years ago, and I got little shards of glass in my head. Or like little metal splinters is what they feel like, which normally don't bother me, but if I just barely like bump one, like I hit my head on a spark plugs the other day on a motor. Maybe it's an exhaust manifold stud. Don't matter, but it'll irritate it and it'll get kind of red and hurt like crazy for a couple of days. Every once in a while, a little piece of glass will pop out. The last one was a couple of years ago, which would have been like 18 years after I crashed the car, but drive responsibly. But let's get busy. Figured I'd crawl under here and give you kind of a once over what we're going to be doing on the underneath side of this machine. Fuel tank's relatively easy to get to, sending units on top of it. Main vent and fill tube is here and over up in there, so we'll be pulling that guy out, putting the new one in it, running new lines down the frame rails. This thing is in remarkable condition underneath. If you've never looked underneath at one of these vans, they're basically a pickup truck, but just beefed up even more. You've got these main channels that run all the way up and down, fully boxed, and they've got these big old, I don't know, stringers, whatever you want to call them, ribs that run one side to the other, all the way up and down it. These huge beefy transmission cross members. They are well built, and this thing is about as clean as you can get rust wise on the bottom side. I mean, it's virtually spotless, not even dirty really. Still see factory paint and stuff under it. So let's Let's move on down here a little further. Look at my nice exhaust. It's got Flowmaster on it, but it's got a patch there, a little short section, more crap. Then on up to the factory white pipe there. Here we are under the powertrain. That's the turbo 350. That's engine oil. That's not transmission fluid. There's quite a bit of room under here, like in the bottom, which is awesome because there's no room in the top. Like, you can pretty much see the front of the engine there. Up there, you can see the cutout in the floor that wraps around the backside of the engine up through there. I saw yesterday when I put this on the lift, the wire fell out of a thing and kind of melted on the manifold. My only concern with getting the engine to fit in is right up here in the back. The header on the LS looks like it might maybe kind of get into the floor of the van around the doghouse. I also bought some new shocks we're gonna throw on it. I don't think these old dudes are doing anything anymore. Let's move up to the front. Up here it gets a little more crowded. I'm gonna have to figure out something with the power steering. I've got to take the pump off anyways to get to the engine mount bolt. I have to take the fuel pump off on that side. As you can see, there's almost no room. I mean, you've got your grill, your bumper, your narrow core support, your fan shroud, and your crank. So I would say from the front of the crankshaft to the front of the bumper is maybe a foot and probably 8 inches, 10 inches. It's less than 2 feet. So we're now I got a lot of room to work with. I should be able to set the LS in the exact same position as this 350. Like, I shouldn't have to move the transmission forwards or back, but I don't know that for sure. So it's just what she looks like underneath. First thing I'm gonna do here is try to remove this, like I said earlier, this lower section, that piece, and that header panel with the grill trim on it. Oh hey, so what I'm working on now, as you already know, is pulling all the fasteners out to get the top plate, this guy, and that lower surround off. I also have to unbolt the top radiator supports and the hood latch. What that's going to enable me to do is get the condenser lines loose, get the radiator pulled out. There's a cutout right here, kind of like on the old Fords and Mopars. There's a cutout where there's just barely enough room to kind of get the motor pulled out. I'm not going to show you every single fastener that I pull out on this thing, especially sheet metal related, because y'all be falling asleep. So I'm going to pull out about 30 fasteners here and bring you back once we get to the point where I can pull this off. Well, it's about 30 minutes later and I've pretty much got this thing more or less loose. There could be some fastener buried down low that I haven't seen yet, but this really wasn't that bad. Fasteners there. One's back here, a little difficult to get to because you got to go down here behind the battery tray. Down there. There's a couple along the top. You can see this gap here. This is what I'm separating. These were pushed together. Then over here, had to pull out the coolant reservoir bottle. Turn my light on. You can see there, and then down there is another fastener, and then a few across this edge here. I just loosened these up. There's a fastener down here. Loosen that up, loosen that up. I'm gonna go ahead and try to wiggle this thing out of here. It's wedged in here real tight. These fenders are weld on, you can't take them off. All right, let's try this. an impact, by the way. I'm aware. Jeez Louise. Okay, we'll get this one off first. And we got a horn wire hung up. Okay, so after looking at it, my front bumper is pushed that ways, quite a ways. There's a little ding over here in the fender where the bumper is went boop and hit it. So I can't even get a finger in this gap over here, and I've got like 2.5 fingers there. So this piece will come out like it should on that end, but it's kind of wedged on that side. So until I loosen that bumper up on that side, that piece is just gonna have to stay there. I was actually able to break the AC line fittings loose right here where they come around the corner, and surprisingly these had nuts on the back of them, so I'm not sure if that was factory or if this had been replaced or what. Alright, see if I can get it off out of these lines. Well, I can see the head. Should be a lot easier with an extra set of hands. If y'all get off the toilet and come help, that'd be great. Alrighty then. Alright, next up on the list is a part that I really can't record while I'm doing it because there's no room. I gotta pull this bracket here off. I gotta pull that off. Pull the dipstick tube out. What I gotta do is crawl down underneath and unbolt that fan right there at the front of the water pump. I gotta get those nuts out. It's literally impossible from here. I mean, you can't even see it. But I gotta get down there from underneath, bust those off with a ratchet wrench, get the fan loose, set it inside the shroud. Then I've got to take off this heater core hose that goes straight into the core. And then there's another one. Where is it? Oh, it's on the other side. Anyways, got to get the transmission cooler lines off. Can't even get my light in here to show you. Those two trans cooler lines off. The radiator hose is already off from yesterday. So that'll get that side freed up. And then over here, pop off that radiator hose. And then what I can do is get down in here and grab the fan and the fan shroud assembly itself and pull it up out of the top. Alrighty then, so I've got all my dipsticks pulled out. I've got the little baseball, got the overflow or the windshield washer tank, got the fan unbolted. I left the transmission lines and the heater core because I think I can get this out. If you got a van, you want to do stuff like this, you're going to have some tore up arms. Just FYI. I'm wiggling the fan off the front of the water pump. Okay. Get hold to the fan here. Alright. Now this is how tight this is. This fan shroud is straight vertical, like up against the radiator, and there's barely enough room to get your fingers right here. And that shroud's only this wide, so that's how much room you got. to work with. Or I should say that's how much room I got to work with since you're just watching. I gotta apologize for the camera angle kind of being that angle just about every time. I'm literally back against the wall. Okay, I think we can get it. This radiator works good, so I'm planning on, at least for now, using it in the swap. Let's see if I can, or you're gonna freeze in the bucket. Not too much dirt coming out, that's good. This thing's always run cold, so I don't expect to have any problems with the radiator. Radiators have like magical powers, you know, you like drain them out, tip them this way, tip them that way, drain them out, and then set them on your floor, and then 3 more gallons comes out. Not sure how that works. Well, alrighty then. Now you can see what we're working with. Got to pop that power steering pump off so I can get to the motor mount bolt that's right behind it. Same story over there, except that's a smog pump or whatever. Basically gonna have to pull the compressor off and the compressor bracket. I got to get in there in the interior, get the doghouse pulled off. I'll pull the seats out too, but have to probably pull the intake off to get this thing up high enough where it'll come over the top of this metal structure here, you know, without the top of the cherry picker hitting right there. What you've got is this metal structure right here. Right behind that's where your feet go. Comes up, around, across the top, and then back down right here. This is the accelerator pedal on the other side of the firewall, and where your toes go. So you can see there is not much room here to work with. And then over here, got my light set up. You got your brake proportioning valve. There's an evap canister right here. Your battery's there. Booster assembly, obviously. Over on this side, got your AC evaporator core. Kind of my objective with this video is basically, it's cool, but secondhand is there's not really any videos out there that really show what's required, especially not part numbers and stuff like that for doing an LS swap in your van, your G20. There's a lot of these vans out there, and they're coming on pretty good in popularity, so I figure I'd get in here and show you all kind of what it's all about. I have not done an LS swap in one of these before, so I am no expert, but I never made the claim to be. Now, one of my minor concerns is, you know, the clearance from the cylinder head to there for my exhaust. That's a small block Chevy, obviously, but there is probably from the mating surface for the valve cover to the edge of that is like 2.5 inches. It's about the same on the other side. Can't really see, but I'm gonna get in there and pop the doghouse off. I'll pull the seats out first. I won't do the seats on camera because there's nothing exciting about that, but I'll show you real quick how to pop the doghouse off, and that will give us, I can set a light up in the van, that'll give us a lot more light, like background light in there. So I'm gonna do that real quick. One cool thing about the old van is most of them you can open the doors up all the way when they're on the lift. Not many machines you can do that with. Figured I'd give you a real quick shot of the interior, which I've already got a video out for this, but a lot of you are gonna be first time watcher for this. These seats didn't originally come in this van, but I picked them up for 50 bucks out of a salvage yard. So I'll probably get them recovered in blue. She's really dirty, but like I've said, she just sits outside all the time, and I haven't driven it in 6 months. Normally I keep it cleaner than this. But I'm gonna pull these seats out of here, get them out of there. There's doghouse right there that comes off. I'm doing a carpet delete on this thing. I was gonna do it already, but I didn't. Figured it's probably a big thick layer here, and I got a extra floor mat here, so that ain't gonna hurt the knees sitting in here working. I can lay tools on it and be pretty nice actually. But here's what she looks like. Haven't decided what direction I'm gonna go with this van. Right now it's set up by Carl, the guy that used to own this thing. They had a painting service they ran out of here, so it's got shelves and stuff in it. Can't decide if I want to leave it like work van oriented, put like toolboxes and stuff like that in it, or if I want to go, you know, the full vanning custom route. So I'll pull these seats out real quick and show you how to take the doghouse off. I guess I can tell you how to do the seats. Two ways. They bolt to the floor. There's a big old plate, or there's bolts right here on the bottom. And I don't care if this stays here. I can sit on it or whatever. The base will still be there. But I'm just gonna pull all four of those off, and it'll be my tool platform or my sitting on platform. All right, I'm back. So on to the next part. The configuration of these for most of these 80s vans are about the same. They just have a brake here. You got a upper piece and a lower piece. A lot of these are carpeted in some of the vans, but this one's just a work van. This one's in pretty bad shape. I'm actually looking for a good one. Every time I see one for sale, there's a big split here and the holes are wallered out for these fasteners, but you got to take this one off first. So you've got two bolts down here. There are slight variations in model years, so yours may or may not be identical to this. First chance I get to find one of these that's in a little better shape. My dash is in good shape, but this is not. The other, you got two here. This one's already out. It rattled and fell out into the cup holder one of the last times I drove it, so I didn't put it back. Knew it was coming right back off. A 3-foot long bolt here. Not out yet. Okay. Then you've got your wiring for your cigarette lighter, which hopefully for most of you is a USB phone charger, not a cigarette lighter. Here we've got my wiring for that. Been spliced a couple of times, as you can tell. Alright, get that out of the way. Now you've got your main doghouse. I don't know what these are for. Obviously accessories that this machine didn't have. So getting this off is pretty easy. You've got two clamps there on the corners, and then you've got two bolts here. Again, mine's missing one because the hole in the floor is cross-threaded or whatever. So I'm going to be fixing that when I put it back together. And you undo the clamp. So she's ready to come off. Let me crawl around and get that out. .88 horsepower, 350 cubic inch GM small block. So this is a love-hate thing with vans. I mean, everything from about the front 1/3 of the engine back is really easy to get to. You got your valve covers here, Your distributor. Carburetor's super easy to fool with here. This front spark plug's not so much. I mean, got my tape measure here to kind of show you what I was talking about when we were under the car. We got like 1.25 inches from the outside of the manifold, 3 1/4 from the face of the cylinder head. The transmission bell housing comes to there, so getting bell housing bolts out don't get no easier. There's one there and everywhere else. But this side's about the same. And your radio right there, it's really easy to wire radios in. Look at that squirrel nest. So at this point, what I'm going to start doing is just pulling all the spaghetti off this motor. I'm going to pull the plug wires off, pull the distributor cap off, the air breather. Basically get this thing torn down to where I can get the carburetor off and unbolt the air compressor and the front accessory drive, parts that need to come off, and then I'll bring you back to check on my progress. Alright, so we've made progress. I've got most of the wires pulled loose. I pulled all the wires off the distributor and off the plugs where I could reach them. They don't necessarily have to come off the engine. They just needed to be out of the way at the top. So my next step is I'm going to pop off the alternator, take it all the way off, take the belt off. I'm going to take the tensioner bracket and air compressor off. Then I'll be able to get the power steering pump assembly unbolted and hung down in the hole. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll show you what it looks like when we get that part done. Been made. I was able to get the air compressor assembly off out of the way. I got the air pump off. I got the power steering pump off and hanging right there. What else? I can now get a straight shot at that motor mount. I've got to pull this fuel pump off, and then I can get a shot at the one behind it. How old do you think that fuel pump is? Haven't seen one like that in quite some time. Looking at this truck, it's amazing how far offset the motor is to one side. Like, there's probably I would say 6 or 7 inches between the manifold and that frame rail there. And then over here, there's like 1/2 inch. So I do have concerns about the LS exhaust fitting, in that little hole. Not sure how that's gonna work. The angle of the exhaust ports and stuff on these old motors is totally different, so it's hard to say exactly what's going to happen. I know the LS header kind of kicks straight back. This manifold actually comes forward before it goes down and back, so not sure how that's going to work. If I had to, I could notch the inside edge of this frame rail and just like weld in some like 1.5 inch pipe sections just to reinforce it, but I could do that if I needed to, just where it needed to clear the headers. So I'm gonna pull this fuel pump off. All right, just give you all a little status update. I got the fuel pump out of the way. I've got the motor mount bolts loosened. I got the exhaust out of the way. I got the whole thing out in one piece. I've got the torque converter cover off. I have the starter off. Now I need to get the torque converter bolts off. As you can see, I busted 3 out of the 6 bolts for the exhaust. So all I really lack of swinging this dude out is bell housing bolts, torque converter bolts, and engine mount bolts, and then a couple of wires once I get the thing pulled up a little farther out of the engine bay. Well, I've got most of the wiring pulled off that needs to be pulled off, that I can. There's stuff from the starter. I'm not sure what they had going on down there. These two went to the starter, as did these two. All these, that went to the starter, that went to the starter. Both of these went to the starter. These are the two jumper wires that somebody run all the way up to the dash. And then these, that's a factory harness right here. These two heavy gauge, like 10 gauge wires, are made with a wire nut into the other one of those that goes up there. I'm not sure what they did. I think they cut apart the factory fusible link wire joint, wherever that was, and lost power to the whole entire vehicle, charging system and everything. So it's basically come down to this point, I think. We got that lower grill surround piece popped off there, just loosened up them bolts over there. These are my main wiring harnesses. I'm going to try to snake them out off the top of the motor once I get it up a few feet. And motor mount bolts are out. Plate is on top of the engine. Jury's still out on whether I can get this thing up and out with those stupid smog era crap hanging off the side there. This is at an angle, kind of. So as I lift the motor up, it's going to get tight, and I got to come up 2 or 3 inches there. Over here, it's not that big of a problem because that firewall, the cowl section there, is more or less straight up and down. I'm going to pick it up, see what it does, and if it doesn't work, I'll either saw them off or get hopeful with some penetrating oil. But over here on the inside, I've got, like you already saw, most of the wiring and stuff out of the way. I can get to some of these nuts, but if you've ever taken these apart before, you know they're hard to get to in this van anyways, but they rust up pretty bad. Got my bell housing bolts out already. See it already separated a hair. So I'm gonna snake this thing up, set you guys up, and see if we can get something done here. Hopefully. I give myself 50-50 odds that motor will come out without messing with those stupid pipes. Well, it looks like I about run out of time on this episode. It's gonna be a little long, but that's all right. Appreciate y'all joining me. Stay tuned for the next round.